out.
All right, I'm hitting
Close
live.
that.
Hello,
I
everyone.
did the.
Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second.
Let me close my door.
Right, I'm going to just go in your.
Yep, just a minute. Bring up the show notes. All right, I'm now recording.
Now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 293 for December 2nd, 2022. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, coming off of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which means we're both mentally tapped, but that's okay. We still have a lot of stuff to talk about, including a new Windows 11 preview build that came out that fixes a long-standing complaint we've had that I'm actually kind of excited about, but I think Zach is still not 100% satisfied. We'll explain that controversy. First up, Surface Duo maybe getting an insider program. Say it is true. This is something, of course, we've been asking for, well, I think they should have had this since day one, but there is now new evidence that this may be actually a thing that is happening or getting ready to happen. We'll explain why that would be and what we could expect from it. I don't think we'll really discuss this. I'll just announce Adobe Fresco is now in the Microsoft Store. I'm not sure else what we can say about that. It's a pretty popular application, but at some point in the last month, it did show up in the Microsoft Store. It's a very good drawing app if you're into that. I'm not. I can't draw for anything. But if you are, you can go get that in the store. We didn't talk about the Pixel Fold rumors and I believe some images that came out recently. So I haven't even followed this story at all, but I know Zach has, so he'll discuss that. I did get a new laptop this week, despite the fact I haven't posted a review for any laptops for the last couple of weeks. I swear, though, my regular Dragonfly review is queued up. I just got to add a few more photos. Listen, folks, it's been a whirlwind month for me, and I really need a vacation. But I will be talking about another Dragonfly. Sorry, I wrote the Elite Folio. It's the Dragonfly Folio. This is but so the HP Dragonfly Folio G3. We just got review units and for that, and I'm already calling it what the future of all Ultrabooks, or at least 2-in-1s, should look like, and I'll explain why that is, and why I'm actually completely blown away by this. And this, folks, is going to be the PC I use going forward.
Wow.
For what I'm at in front of my desktop, and I'll explain why. And I guess we'll try to go through any reviews and things of the week. We don't have too much, I don't think, in that department, although we'll look to see what we actually posted. And we'll talk about maybe things we picked up on Black Friday and Cyber Monday that is related to this podcast. Zach, how are you doing on this fine, chilly first December Friday?
I am not too bad. I don't know if you can see this behind me, and I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet because we didn't do one last week. But I have a Surface Hub 2 now, and it's just in my office. It's currently running TweetDeck because that's basically all it's good for. Actually, let's open with that because, you think Surface Hub 2, you think very expensive PC, must be awesome, right? It's awesome from the display, and that's it. Everything else about this thing is underpowered. It's an 8th gen laptop CPU. It's basically a Surface Laptop 2 on the inside, an entry-level Surface Laptop 2 with 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, and integrated Intel graphics, which struggle to power this 4K plus display. Windows animations are laggy. It's just not I've had to turn off like transparency effects because the blur effects in Windows 11 just do not play nicely with it. Which is why it runs Windows Team, right? It runs a special version of Windows, which is very locked down, very lightweight. And that's because this thing is not powerful at all. That said, it does officially support migration to Windows 11 Pro, which is what I've done with it. And right now, it's a glorified sort of TweetDeck command center. You can sort of half see it there, and it's it's really cool. It's got really nice speakers on it, and yeah.
And it's technically what, $18,000?
No, this one's only $8,000, Dan.
Only 8,000. But you didn't pay that.
No, I got it for way. I would never have paid full price for it. I got it for basically like 95% off. So, yeah. To be fair, I had to get it because I collect Microsoft Surfaces, and that's one I didn't have, and now I do have it.
And for that price, it actually kind of makes sense. It is kind of hilarious for $8,000. All that money goes to that display, which. There aren't many touch displays that size with that accuracy, which is the whole. And the webcam.
Funny enough, it's the only Surface display with an anti-reflective coating. I don't know if you knew this, Dan, but it has, it's anti-reflective.
They are aware this technology exists.
And it's the only Surface PC all-in-one, I guess, technically, that you can use with other devices. It has a HDMI port on the back, which you can plug in other PCs to. So this thing, even though it is slow, I could plug in, say, the Windows Dev Kit to it, for example, and turn it into basically an ARM PC, which is pretty cool.
Could you plug in a Surface Studio into?
I could technically plug in a display. I could do that, yeah. I have thought about using it as my primary display, but I just don't have the setup in this room to be able to have it at a far enough distance for it to make sense. So for now, it's sitting over there behind me. We'll see what happens with it in the future. You know, it has that upgradable compute cartridge in the back, so maybe at some point Microsoft will update that and I'll be able to buy one of those and stick it in the back, but who knows. I just thought I'd mention that I've got one now, and it's been a hilarious experience. When it arrived, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah,
that's all right. I got something a little bit more practical, which actually I did tweet it out, but I haven't followed up on it because it's still in the box because it's just been that kind of week. But I do have Surface Studio 2 Plus in the house, so to speak, so I will be benchmarking it and comparing, contrasting it. Although there's not a lot to do, it's mostly about the horsepower and all that, but we'll get some coverage of it up soon. I still owe HP another review, which is the all-in-one 34-inch, which I'd like to try to do this weekend. But yeah, it's been hard for me. As I previously mentioned, I've had to take over running all of Windows Central in the last couple of weeks, which has been a joy. Like I really like it. It's just there's a lot more stuff. Yeah, there's a lot more going on, and we're refocusing the brand a bit, which you'll hear more about coming into the new year. We just found out we will be getting comments back at some point this year. I'll get more info about when we expect that to happen, but we will be redoing our forums, and then our forums and comment system will interact with each other, which is going to be really awesome. So we will be able to reboot our community. So if you've been waiting for that for the last 6 months, there is progress being made. It's been something Jez and I have been really hammering future PLC about, and it looks like they're coming around to the idea. And it's going to coincide with a little bit more of a different not a different focus, just a more narrow focus of what we're doing at Windows Central, which I'm pretty excited about. But the side effect of all this is I have even less time now to write on the site, but that's going to work its way out. There's just a lot of onboarding that I have to do, and getting things in order, getting things done that haven't been done, that should have been done. So as that gets straightened out, I'll be getting back into my rhythm. I should also mention we have our newsletter back. If you go to Windows Central, that annoying pop-up that you get, if you actually put in your email, you will get basically a once-a-week digest of the biggest stories that we're doing. It's just 6 stories usually. We may bump that up to twice a week. I'm trying to feel it out about how much coverage and stuff that's actually interesting, because I don't want to waste people's time. But if you don't like to go to the front page every day and stories slip through the cracks, which is easy enough, this will be a great way to just get the core interesting content and nothing else. So I do encourage people to sign that up. And that newsletter will be evolving too. Right now, it's a little bit more generic. It's just like, oh, here are our 6 top stories. And you just browse the headlines and click what you want. In the future, it's going to get a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more customized, where, I'll probably be writing in more stuff into it. And it
Maybe
might actually
we'll
turn
post
to
leaks only in the newsletter. Surface 203.
Right. Yep. So there will be newsletters are the new podcasts, apparently. So we're finally coming around to that idea too. So a lot of cool stuff we're building out around Windows Central, which is going to be really nice going forward. But you guys don't want to hear that. Let's get to the real news here. Windows 11 search is kind of fixed. So let me just set the context here. If you use Windows 11, hopefully you do, you may notice by the start key is a magnifying glass, or there was just a magnifying glass. And you used to click that, and then it would open up like a search box, and it was fine. And then they recently made it into like a search bar with rounded pill-like design. And it looked cool because it was very reminiscent of older Windows where you would actually have the search box built into the start to the taskbar, which I always found very convenient. The problem here was it was just like it was a faux search bar. Like you would click it, but you couldn't type into it. All it was just like a larger search button. And so you'd click it and it would still open up the dialog, which you then have to type in. So it's a little weird. I liked it visually. I thought it drew your eyes a little more
visually.
Well, I can understand the design of it. Like I wish it was a little bit more of a squircle than a pure pill design, but this is stuff that's fixable. Even if it was just square, I think it would have been fine, but maybe that was a little too dated. So the big news here is in the insider build that came out this week, that seems to have been addressed. Zach, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so the latest dev channel build 25252, which is an awesome build number, rolled out to dev channel, and it has some options for that search icon now. So as Dan mentioned, it was originally a magnifying glass. Then they rolled out a pill-shaped search button, which took up more space on the taskbar and was terrible. I don't care what Dan says. It was terrible. But now they're actually adding another option, a third option called Search Box, which is a much wider sort of search pill. It's actually more boxy. The corners on it are much sharper. They're still rounded, though, keep that in mind. But this is different because unlike the search pill, which was simply a button, just a larger button, so it took up more space on the taskbar for no reason, the search box acts like the Windows 10 search box. So you click on it, and it actually is a text field which you can input text into. So when you click on it, you can type, and that text, your search query, actually gets entered into the taskbar, and your search result comes up in the flyout, which opens when you click on it. So that actually makes the extra space on the taskbar way more warranted, because you need that space to be able to see what you're typing. And it sort of essentially restores the same functionality that the Windows 10 search experience was, where you had that massive search bar on the taskbar, and typing stuff into it would actually put text into that and then display results in the flyout above it. That is now an option again in Windows 11 with this latest dev channel build, but they're giving you the choice. So it's not just this text box. You can continue to use this ugly search pill button if you'd like for some reason, and that is basically just like the magnifying glass but wider. You click on it, you don't input any text into that button. It just opens up the flyout, which has the search bar along the top of the flyout, and then you type your search query into there. The other option is the magnifying glass, which is what Windows 11 had originally. And then the option, which is what I choose, is no icon at all. You can simply hide it, which you've always been able to do. And that saves space because you can still initiate search using the same amount of steps using the start menu. Which also in this build, it's not announced in the changelog officially, but if I think they're A/B testing it at the very least, or if not, you can use a third-party tool to enable it. They are actually working on improving the integration between clicking the search bar at the top of start menu and actually getting search results. Right now in Windows 11 shipping builds, if you click on that search bar at the top of the start menu, it just launches the search flyout. They're not an integrated experience. But with this build, if you type into that search bar within the start menu, it will seamlessly transition to search results as if it was built into the start menu. And it looks so much nicer, and the experience is much more fluid as a result. So I'm really glad to see them finally working on that. That was one of my biggest complaints in the original build of Windows 11 when that launched. It just was very clear that the search box in the start menu wasn't a real search box. It was just a quick launcher for the search. The search panel, which is separate from start, but that seems to be being more integrated now, so that's really awesome. So yeah, those are the big changes around search. I'm happy to see that they're adding options. I'm glad they're not forcing one or the other. It's like you have to have a search box or nothing. It's like, hey, you can have a search box, or you can have a search pill, or you can have a search icon, or you don't have to do anything. I'm glad they're giving users the choice, because choices are good, and it allows users to customize their stuff, their taskbar and stuff in the way they want. And yeah, Dan, which one are you going to be choosing here?
Oh, I like the search box though.
Yeah,
I like I like searching directly into the taskbar. That's just old school Windows for me. Right now, and yeah, it's kind of funny just because I for a while was just turning off the search icon completely, because you could just do it from start, right?
Yeah.
You would hit start and just start typing, and it would do the same thing. So it wasn't really dramatically different. But I kind of like the idea of typing into the box itself. I haven't tried this build yet, so I don't have any experience with it, but yeah, it's nice. It's clear to listening to feedback. It may not be exactly what everyone's asking for. I think there's still room for improvement, but it's clear also that they're making these small, nice, and warranted changes that make it more interesting. Search is so important, right? It's the thing we all do on PCs. It's the first thing you do usually in your web browser. So building search into Windows, or making it more easy accessible, more robust, I think is the right thing to do. In fact, I'd like to see them double down on that even more. What that means, I don't know, right? I'm not in charge of thinking of these things, but there are, I think, definitely ways that they can sort of even make this even better.
Yeah, I do think that I imagine the drive behind this is to increase their monthly active users. The bigger the button, the more likely people are going to click on it, and the search box is the biggest button, and also have that little icon, doesn't it? That little Bing image of the day icon, which sits in there and gives you
and that looks cool. Like I have to admit, I like
it?
that. I forgot about that. I can see both ways. I can see also our audience being like, it's too cutesy and just too blah. But I like it because it just adds a little flair and a little bit of color that's not blue to the taskbar. I don't know. I think the little picture thing looks kind of cool. I like these little. Again, it's leaning into sort of what Mac OS is without copying Mac OS or being as annoying as Mac OS is. And so I like that. I'm all about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one last sort of minor addition in this build is they're adding a VPN icon to the internet icon in the system tray. So when you are using the internet via a VPN, there'll be a little shield in the icon just to let you know that, hey, you are using a VPN. And just keep that in mind. So there you are. Those are the notable changes in the build this week. Pretty exciting stuff, I think.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Hopefully, we'll see more going into the new year. But we should mention that this is December now, and those things we expect to really slow down, probably through February at least. So I imagine there'll be a couple of little things trickling out that they've been working on. But at the same time, yeah, we should definitely see a slowdown in all tech coverage, which we actually are looking forward to at Windows Central, as we have a lot of small projects we're working on.
I will say we'll try and keep it interesting. We do have some. I have some stories in the works, which I'm probably hoping to get out in January. I know lots of people have been asking about the Duo 3. I'm working on it, I promise, and I am sort of hoping maybe we can get an article out in January which talks a bit about it. But I'm still working on some details and whatnot. So, but yeah, hopefully even this dry spell of tech news, I'm going to hopefully try and keep it interesting for the Microsoft fans, but we'll have to see.
Nice. Let's move on. Surface Duo Insider Program. I only tangentially followed this news, but from what I understand, some hints at within the code of the Surface Duo 2 was found suggesting that this was a thing, but you brought a little bit more information to the table regarding its history and its possible future.
Yeah, so Gustav Montz on Twitter, the man behind many Windows Phone and Surface Duo projects, including Windows 11 on the Surface Duo, was digging around in the Surface Duo OS recently and came across references to a Surface Insider program, which looks to sort of function similarly to other insider programs within the Microsoft realm, the Windows Insider program, which allows you to download preview builds of Windows via the dev, beta, or release preview channels. It looks like the Surface Duo has a similar sort of system that's being used internally right now. So the Surface Duo inside a program, you have a bunch of different rings, also known as channels, to choose from. Internally, there's like developer, there's dog food, there's beta, retail, etc., which is really interesting because although it is being used internally, I've heard for a while now that the idea of an insider program for the Surface Duo, a public insider program, has been something that they've wanted to do for a while. And so seeing that they have a system already in place for internal flighting means it would be quite easy for them to bring that up and turn it into a public-facing thing for enthusiasts who want to get access to the latest builds and the latest features early in preview form in exchange for submitting feedback and helping shape the product, which is exactly what the Insider program does on Windows today. You sign up for the program. In exchange, you give Microsoft all of your telemetry data, and if you want, you can also submit your own feedback in addition to that, and hopefully Microsoft will listen to you and take on board your ideas. That would be basically the same thing for the Surface Duo. You'd sign up for an insider ring, or maybe the same would be for Windows on Duo. You'd have dev, beta, and production maybe, and then whatever it would be. Actually, I don't think it'd be that. I think there's not much. It'd probably be preview ring or not preview ring. But if you were to select the preview ring, you would get access to builds which have features that are in development or, aren't ready to ship just yet, but Microsoft is ready to show enthusiasts who are willing to provide feedback. And it would also allow Microsoft to ship new versions of Android ship in air quotes, to preview new versions of Android much earlier in the development process. Android 12L for the Duo came out in, late September, maybe early October, or late October rather. That was obviously in the works over the entire summer. When Android 12L was finalized in March, Microsoft were already working on 12L for the Duo. And, it got, as far as I'm aware, it got to a relatively stable point in sort of late August. So that would have been a great time for Microsoft to start previewing builds for enthusiasts instead of waiting until the end of October. So that's the kind of thing they could do. This is what Samsung and OnePlus do. You'll always hear about Oxygen OS beta or One UI 5 beta, which is the latest version of Android shipping to beta testers on Samsung devices before that version is ready to ship to the public on Samsung devices. And Microsoft could do the exact same thing here, and it would be a really good way to get new versions of Android out to the Duo much earlier in the process rather than waiting as long as they currently do to get it. Because, 12.0 came out after Android 13 did. And it kind of looks bad, but that's just the nature of Android development. But with an insider program, Microsoft could have started shipping or at least flighting 12L builds to enthusiasts before Android 13 had come out. But yeah, there you are. Appears that they do have a system in place internally, and it's something that I have heard that they might want to turn into a public-facing thing in the future. And it's just all plays into the whole idea that, they're still committed to the Duo. They still want to build out this product with new features and experiences. I've heard a number of things are in the works for the Duo. We've talked about it before, but the cloud-based continuum using Windows 365, that's in the works. Apparently a one-handed mode is in the works, so you'd be able to use sort of like a reachability mode for when you're in single screen mode. And inking on the lock screen, another thing I've heard, is something they want to get done at some point. Plus a bunch of other things. There's lots of ideas and stuff they have internally that they kind of want to commit to on the Duo, which would be great for an insider program where they can flight these ideas and test them before they are ready to ship. So hopefully we see that come to life in 2023. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, as I kind of hinted at the beginning, I think this was something I don't want to be this should have been there from day one. And I understand the complexity of launching a new device and priorities and got to get things going. And, you and I work for a company where there's a lot more we wish we could do, but we only have a budget for so much. And so there are constraints that, Microsoft faces, just like any other company. That said, I'm glad to see that this is apparently going to come. I think this could only be a good thing, especially as Microsoft builds out this category or this, who knows what they're going to do going forward with Duo 3. Will it be a single screen foldable? Will it be a dual screen? Will there be two devices? There an expensive one that's the single screen foldable and a more affordable one that's dual screen. We don't know, but this at least gives them the opportunity to experiment a little, get feedback from people and suggestions. And so I'm all here for it. I think it's all good stuff.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. Yeah, it does seem to be quite quiet on the Duo front so far. Obviously, the Android 12L stuff just came out basically a bit over a month ago, and that was a big release for the Duo line. I know I saw a few people sort of complaining there wasn't enough. They wanted more, which I was confused about because I thought an entire redesign of most of the system elements was a big deal. But people are like, actually, there's not any new features, and I guess I could see the point. But I don't know.
But that's what we've also said, regarding 12L. It's like the bigger
It's
thing
just
with
Android.
12L.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be more about. That's why I always joke when people are like, 12L isn't here or Android this isn't here. I'm like, all right, what's the top feature that you really want? Or can you name me 5 features that are in that build that you're excited about? Of course they can't. Most people can't name things. It's all small improvements because the operating systems we have today are heavily evolved. This isn't like 2009 with Android. This is 2022. The core stuff is there. It's like, oh, they made the background a bit different here, and the buttons look a little different and have a different shade to them. The accent color now changes to your wallpaper. Cool stuff. I'll never say no to these things, but this idea that they were going to completely reskin the entire operating system a la Samsung, which I don't think I would have wanted anyway. You want some customization in places that make sense, but you also don't want to have such a unique Android experience that when someone goes to pick up what is already a complicated device is even more confused about the operating system, which looks now so radically different from something that they're coming from. They got to find that right balance. But that answers that question. Technology, could they do more? Of course. Every piece of technology that comes out, nothing's perfect. It could always be better. It could always be improved. It could always do more. But we're facing finiteness.
It's also important to remember that Microsoft was really finding its feet with Android up until recently. Like the Android 12L, I think, is the first release of Android from Microsoft that's kind of in a place. It came from a place where they were confident and sort of, we sort of get this now. We know how this works. We've got this going. And so, the next few releases I think are going to be really interesting for the Duo line because this will be where Microsoft starts to differentiate the software much more. And I've hinted at this before, and this is still early, so all of this stuff could change. But I wouldn't be surprised if the next version of Windows, the next Valley stuff, that UI is similar to whatever they were able to ship on the Duo at some point as well. This whole idea of building one UI that can scale across Android and Windows and be familiar to both platforms. That's something they want to achieve, and we're obviously still quite a way away from there. But now that they've found their footing, now that they sort of get Android and understand the ins and outs of how it works, they will become quicker at this sort of thing. They'll be able to iterate faster. They'll be able to add their own stuff and turn it into a uniquely Microsoft, a uniquely Surface experience. I don't know how deep they will go. As you mentioned, Samsung goes to crazy lengths to sort of customize Android, but that's kind of their whole thing.
I don't like it.
But me too. It is too much. It's too much. But some people love it. Some people say, Android is Samsung, and without Samsung, Android doesn't innovate. Android doesn't move forward.
People are gross.
A lot of people say, and it's probably true, a lot of the stuff that ends up in stock Android starts life as a One UI feature.
There's some truth to that. Yeah. Samsung just throws billions at Android because they know they don't have a choice. They can rest a little now knowing that Huawei is no longer a threat.
Such a shame.
Yeah, Huawei was on the cusp of meeting the same shipments as Samsung was, which was a huge accomplishment. And then the ban went into effect, and they went from 20% shipments, which was pretty much what Samsung was doing, to 4% within a couple of quarters. Which, when people talk about getting away from Google and why don't they just fork Android and just go it on their own? It don't work. If China and Huawei can't do it, no one else can. Which I guess could segue, unless you have something else to say, which I think you do. But we can segue to a small topic of editorial I want to write, but I didn't have a chance to this week.
Oh no! Real quick, I just wanted to mention. You mentioned the accent color thing. I was talking to a couple of people about that feature. Apparently, and this is an interesting fun fact more than anything else. But that algorithm that they programmed for detecting the wallpaper and then choosing an accent color is the exact same algorithm they use in Windows. Apparently, Google's API for that allows the OEM to customize how it works, and Microsoft just put in the Windows one. So how it works on Windows is exactly how it works on the Duo now. I just thought that was really cool. But yeah, sorry, go on, Dan. What was your segue?
Oh, my segue was just a small rant about there was this. We were joking about this about not mentioning Elon, but we're gonna have to just for a second because he did bring up phones this week with this thing with Apple, and they were supposedly going to pull Twitter, and of course it was nonsense. But someone was like, "Well, you're Elon Musk. Why don't you just go build your own phone and show them how it's done?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, just do it, man. It's easy." And of course, like everybody who's listening to this podcast is probably laughing their bleep off because like Microsoft, LG, HTC, Amazon, of course, tried this. Like, Nokia, BlackBerry. Like, there's been a lot of companies who've tried either to play with Android or just go their own separate path, who have all failed, who have way more experience. Like Nokia was the number one shipper of smartphones in the world. BlackBerry, of course, was top in enterprise. Microsoft was already there with Windows Mobile, then had Windows Phone. And the fact is that the ecosystem basically says, no, we want a duopoly. We don't want three operating systems. That both seems to be from consumers and developers on what they're willing to support, no matter how good you think it is. It's just the way, and I don't think that's fair. I don't want that to be the case, but that is the case. And this idea that, like, I mean, let's just take it for a second, okay. So Elon goes, I'm going to make my own phone. All right. So it's got to be at least 2 years before he gets the hardware out. At least 2 years. It takes around 18 months from concept to shipping a new phone. And that's when you're experienced, right? You already have a pipeline and you have everything kind of going already. It's like 18 months. I know phones come out every 12 months, but it's usually 18 months is the lead time for when everything starts being planned. So then you got 18 months, and then, they got to go through FCC. They got to do a bunch of stuff they've literally never done before. And they even have to hire people, right? And he's got money. He'll go poach the best, all that. But you can't just assemble a team overnight. Like, all right, we got a phone, unless you're just going to repurpose an existing Android phone, which is stupid. We haven't even talked about what operating system they use, which is another complicated issue. Let's say he wants to make his own operating system. Good luck. That's at least another 2 years of development. And again, same issue. You have to hire competent people who know this industry, spend a ton of money, hope the team you put together is actually a good team, execute on it. Or you go with Android. But the whole point of this was, like he would want to get away from Google and Apple, so he has more control. Well, all right. So if you just go straight Android, you're still part of the Google ecosystem. So if Google pull Twitter out of the store, it doesn't change anything. So, all right, you fork Android. Well, as I just explained, Huawei tried doing this because they were banned from using the Google Play Store and all its services, and their shipments per quarter went from 20% worldwide of Android to 4% within, I think it was like 3 quarters. Like, and that's Huawei. And Huawei was making arguably the coolest and best technology. They were beating Samsung, in my opinion. I was way more excited about Huawei phones than I was about Samsung. They ran better. They had cooler hardware. They were just doing way more stuff. And if Huawei can't, the only thing that saves Huawei is that they're in China. And in China, Google services were banned anyway, so they can get away with it in their local market. But going global, which was what they were really after, they were really seeking to get into the U.S. market and through carrier deals. That's all gone, and they just can't compete there. So, and of course, Amazon tried this, and it definitely didn't work either. So that's out of the table. And let's put a pause in all of that. Like, let's talk about Android. So let's say the Google Play Store pulls Twitter. Okay. You're on Android. Anyone here knows Android knows who gives an F, right? Because it's Android. All Twitter would have to do is literally host the APK on their own website, write 3 steps, just go into your phone, go into settings, and put in developer mode or allow side loading of APKs, download this file, and install. Why would I go buy an entire new unproven phone when I could just do that? Also, Twitter. Listen, I know Twitter gets a lot of news and attention. It's the 15th largest social network in the world. 15. Almost no one's on it.
I didn't even know there were 15 social networks. I thought there were 3 or 4
because a lot of them
most.
are like in other countries. There's like WeChat, there's Telegram, there's WhatsApp. All these things count as this stuff. I get it. It's like Surface, as I've always said, where it gains more attention than it actually deserves or actually warrants, because Surface doesn't sell a lot, but it gets a lot of press attention. Same thing with Twitter. I get a lot of the big movers and shakers are on Twitter, and that's where a lot of news happens. But in terms of actual usage, your average citizen is not on Twitter. And if they are on Twitter, they're not actually engaging in Twitter. They're just passively reading on Twitter. So the idea that you're going to have all these people be like, let me take my iPhone or my perfectly running and Samsung S22, get rid of those, go buy a new phone where the hardware is not going to be as good. The camera is not going to be as good. The experience will be, because no one gets this right on the first try. And possibly in a completely new operating system with no apps, right? He's going to have the exact same problem if he has his own operating system that every other ecosystem has, which is how do you get those apps? And you don't need all the apps. You just need that one that person needs. This was the problem with Windows Phone. Windows Phone had like 90% of the apps out there, all the major ones. But it always came down to this one thing where it's like, well, I have a smart home set up and this app isn't on it. I use this bank and that banking app isn't on it. And that's all it would take. That one app that you needed or relied on that wasn't on Windows Phone that would kill the whole thing for you. It's a very tough problem to solve. And like the idea is going to take on Apple and all, but his fans are the dumbest people in the world. They're just like, yeah, if anyone could do. And I started engaging with the people. I'm like, all right, explain to me. I lay out just everything I did. I'm like, now how does he solve any of this, including getting apps on there? It's like, well, this was the answer most of the time. Well, if anyone could do it, Elon could.
Yeah.
And it was just like this weird blind faith that he could just magically make it happen without any detail or roadmap or plans. It's just absurd.
It's like Microsoft, a $1 trillion company, couldn't do it. So why do we think a billionaire can do it? I don't know. This whole thing is hilarious. And it's, you mentioned real quick, you mentioned the whole 90%, there were 90% of the apps were there, but it's the 1% of the apps that weren't there that's a big problem for most people. These days, however, I think that's a different story. If 90% of the apps were there and 10% of the apps weren't, it's more than likely things like banking apps and whatnot are available via web apps these days. Back in when Windows Phone was at its prime, web apps were still in their infancy. They were certainly not viable on mobiles. These days, a lot of websites are actually optimized quite well for mobile. And if you have a browser that's good, that offers a very good web app experience, you could, I think, get by with
True. And it gets into the PWA thing. But now you're still talking about educating your average consumer who doesn't know or think that way.
Yeah.
Your average consumer is going to still go to an app store, search an app, not there. Now what? Mm-hmm. And they're not going to want to rely on a browser or, I agree. I think the idea of like using Edge allows you to pin apps to your homepage works really well. I've mentioned Vice. I like reading Vice News. If you go to Vice News, pin it as an app on your Android phone and you open it, you get this awesome full screen experience. It's actually really cool looking. But most people don't know that. And I guarantee you most people aren't doing it. So it's like, I don't know. I just found, and like, this isn't even shade on Elon. Like, this is just his followers are just so uneducated and so dumb about this stuff, which again is fine. I don't mind it. You don't need to know everything about every subject in the world. It's just this idea like, well, he can do it because it's Elon Musk. And it's like this weird, a lot of people, there's a theory out there, which I think makes sense, which is, and I'm no fan of organized religion. I actually despise organized religion. Sorry, but if you want to be spiritual and have your own personal religion, that's fine. I don't have, but organized. But with the decline of organized religion in modern society, there's this idea that people are still looking towards this other sort of deity or some sort of person to follow. And these billionaires are kind of filling in that spot, especially Elon Musk, who has this weird, like people think he's literally Tony Stark, or they want him to be Tony Stark so badly that they just believe, well, like, no, he's the one. He's going to change everything. He's going to save the human race. Like, he literally tweeted about how Elon Musk tweeted how, this was a fight for civilization regarding Twitter. It's like, bro, come on. It's Twitter.
He has very spiritual views on Twitter. He seems to see it as, he referred to it as a town square for the internet, which is where civilization and humanity mainly exists these days. And I think that's a really optimistic view on Twitter, considering it's the 15th social network.
Right. Yeah, Facebook, way bigger, way more important. Yeah. WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat, all this
would be like Microsoft come out and saying Surface, the most popular and best computers. It's like
the future of computing relies on Surface. It's like
it's like come on.
It's like and the thing is, if Twitter went away tomorrow, it is a free market. Other people could create new social networks. It's not unfathomable.
There's already a wave of copycats that are trying to go after the Twitter formula already. And like, if Twitter was to collapse, which back when Elon first took over and they were hemorrhaging employees at a rate unprecedented, it did seem like that was possibly going to happen. But it does seem to have stabilized. It seems that everybody who was jumping ship has jumped ship now, and those left.
Yeah.
There's a skeleton crew, and I guess he has them doing whatever it is he needs them to be doing to at least maintain Twitter. I don't know what they're going to do about innovating on Twitter, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, this whole thing
there's an interesting discussion here. Well, not discussion, but point about technology and disruption, right? Which is, in order for an alternative to Twitter to actually become viable, two things need to happen. And history has always told us this. One, Twitter needs to screw up so badly that people just want to get off of it or are looking for something else to jump to. Two, there needs to be another viable alternative that comes close to or matches what that thing is. And right now, that second category is missing severely. There's just not a huge good alternative to Twitter. And Twitter isn't so bad at this point that people are just desperate to get off. And so this is exactly what happened with the browser, right? Netscape was doing extremely well for a long time. Then they started screwing up and tripping up, and Microsoft came out with the superior Internet Explorer, and that's when people started jumping to Explorer. Granted, it also benefited from Microsoft bundling it into their operating system. But the fact was, Internet Explorer was perceived as a better browser. And so those are the two things you need to happen. It's the same thing with if Elon did a phone. Like, he couldn't release a phone that was almost as good as Android or almost as good as the iPhone. Like, and that would be the best case scenario. It would have to be significantly better. And the idea is like, well, this phone is different and better because it can run Twitter. Like, it's not going to be a selling point. Like, that's not going to get most people to toss it, especially Apple. Like, people don't realize, or, our audience probably realizes, the reason people stick with iPhones isn't because, oh, it's a nice phone. Yeah, that helps. It's because of iMessage. It's called, Face Chat, whatever it's called. It's the integration with Mac OS, the iPad OS. It's the Apple Watch. It's how everything works together in that one ecosystem, which no one can match. Android can't. Android comes close. It's got some alternatives that are pretty close to it, and most people can make something kind of work. But you'll never convince iPhone users to switch away from that for something that's not even as good as their iPhone. It's a really tough problem, and Apple's been very smart for getting that lock-in with their audience.
Yeah, Apple basically has an equivalent to almost every mainstream service and function you would want. If you want reminders, Apple has reminders. If you want cloud storage, Apple has cloud storage. If you want home, IoT based stuff, Apple has that. They have everything. Whereas on Android and other device makers, they have bits and pieces. Microsoft is a prime example of this. You can try and invest yourself in the Microsoft ecosystem, but it's certainly a botched job. It's a lot of putting different things together to sort of create that complete experience, because there's a lot of holes in it. Whereas Apple, if there is a hole in its walled garden, it tries to patch that hole up just so everything that you could possibly want in the digital world is offered by them. And that's why it's so hard for people within the Apple ecosystem to actually get out of there. Even if I'd argue Apple's hardware for the most part isn't entirely exciting. They're not innovating as like they used to. It's very much a status quo type product releases these days, which is fine because their products are at a level where they're super polished, they're super, they're exceptional pieces of hardware, but they're not like groundbreaking, other than in the silicon department, of course. But that's a discussion we've already had a million times. But it's the ecosystem. It's the magic of the ecosystem that keeps people there, and it's the ecosystem that I think pulls people in, because it's even alluring to me. I look at the Apple ecosystem, I go, that whole thing just seems awesome. I'd love to just be part of that whole thing. You just have one company. That said, putting all your eggs in one basket, as they say, is not always a smart decision, because then Apple has control of your entire digital life and all of your photos, videos, documents, emails, everything you've ever done and ever will do within Apple's ecosystem. That said, if you had to choose a company to have all of that stuff, all of that data, which company would you choose? Apple has done a really good job at marketing themselves as the privacy first company, although even they were in the news recently for maybe not being so truthful about that, which I don't know why anybody would be surprised at this. They are all massive tech companies. They're all going to be using that data for all kinds of reasons. There's no way Apple has all of that data and they go, you know what? We're never going to look at that. No one needs to know about this data. They are looking at all of that data, and that's how they build products. That's how they cater their products to their users, because they're looking at that data. They're seeing people's habits. They're seeing what people are using these things for. And so that's how they build products. Whether they sell that data or not is another story entirely. But third-party developers appear to be able to get access to it and track it and stuff. It's a whole thing. But this is just the way the world is. And so people who are shocked that Apple does bad things with data are ridiculous, because every company does this.
Yeah, they have the same issue with the Elon fans, which is they can do no wrong. And they're this weird angels that are, I don't know, it's strange. I don't put anything or anyone on a pedestal. I've never met a
especially
human.
Not a company whose number one goal above all else is to make money. You are the product. It's like, come on.
It's okay to like things. It's okay to respect people and admire them for what they've done. No issue there. But don't put people on pedestals. No one's better than you as a human being. Don't do that to yourself. Have better. Hey, people should have self-respect. It's just like you're as capable. Don't go around simping for a billionaire. Go out there and be something in your own life. Especially when you're not a billionaire.
Like, come on. Like, you are probably struggling to make ends meet. I know I am most of the time. It's like, come on. I'm not going to be like, thank you, Elon. It's like, goodness me.
Like, that same crowd always talk about being an alpha male and all that kind of stuff. Like, it ain't alpha when you're chasing another billionaire who's another alpha out there and you're riding his coattails. It's like, that's not the way it's done, dude. Like, be your own person. Anywho, let's move on. That was a fun. I told you we'd end up discussing Elon because we have to. Well, it happens. Let's move on. Jez Corden published a really interesting editorial, I thought, called "The Failure of Amazon's Alexa Shows Microsoft Was Right to Kill Cortana." Dun, dun, dun. And I know what you're thinking here. It's like, wait, what? Especially since we were all huge fans of Cortana around here. And I think we were, and especially on Windows Phone. It was a really cool thing, and it did a lot of things that were better at the time than Siri and, of course, Google. And it looked cooler, and it was just fun to use. And then it went to Xbox, and it was like, cool, okay, well, it's something. And then it went to PC, and it was like, all right, oh, that's cool. And then it was like, well, maybe it's not. I don't know. And I think this is a bigger discussion about how you don't really hear about voice clients and AI stuff anymore. I mean, think about it. In 2022, when was the last time you even read a story about Siri or Google, whatever they called it?
Google's Assistant still shows up in headlines because they're pushing their AI, the whole idea that it can like do phone calls for you and stuff now, and that's all supposed to be
on the Pixel.
Assistant. Yeah, but that's still Assistant. So yeah,
right. But I'll be honest, I had the Pixel 7. I've been using it, by the way, as my primary phone. Dun dun dun. For the last.
Oh my god, you betrayed the Duo. Oh my goodness.
The Duo is still here. Just I have a SIM in it. I just I don't know. Well, I got the new case in for it. I got the official case in, and I really like the Pixel 7. But also just because of the amount of notifications I get these days, it's been actually a little bit easier having a single screen phone. But I'll go back to the Duo. But it's also weird. We talked about this, how I've never had a phone like for more than a year. And it starts to feel weird after that point.
Yeah, to be fair, I will say technology. I'm getting air quotes bored of having.
Yeah, exactly. Like if there was a Duo 3 here,
totally.
No, I'd be all over the Duo 3, of course. It's just that it's feeling a little bit, it's getting boring because that's what we do. But still, the fact is, it's like you don't really hear much about this. You don't really hear about Siri anymore. It's not that they're not important. It's just they kind of hit their limits in terms of what they can necessarily be doing. And I was going to say on the Pixel 7, yeah, I have all that stuff. I don't know how half of it works, and a lot of it hasn't made my life easier. Actually, the best thing that I've come across on Google that they do is when you go to Google Maps and you type in a restaurant, you can now make a reservation directly through Google Maps. Didn't know you could do that. It's awesome. It takes 3 seconds. I was like, oh, that changed my life. But everything else, yeah, not so much. But that gets, besides the point, this is something else that I've talked about quite a few times whenever we talked about, you talk about AI and voice assistants, which is Amazon. So Amazon has their Echo devices, of course, and they're so popular. Everybody has one, it seems, and Lord knows Amazon tries to sell you one every second it can for ridiculously cheap prices, especially coming off of like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and they always bundle it together. And you're thinking, that's a hit. That proves everything wrong. And I've been saying this for years because I read this years ago. And I want to reiterate it because Jez makes this point too, that I hate to tell you folks, Amazon Echo's a failure. It's a failure. It's not an example of a winning strategy. What do I mean by this? And some of you who've listened to this podcast before will know where I'm going with this, which is the original concept of these devices was simple. You put a speaker with a voice assistant in your house, preferably in your living room or your kitchen. And when you need to order something, you ask, Alexa, I won't say it too loud, to place an order for you. And that was going to drive commerce and sales to Amazon because you're more likely to order something more conveniently just by using voice. Now, I want you all to pause for a second and ask yourself, when was the last time you actually used that feature? No one uses that feature. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. Amazon knows no one uses that feature. What do we use these devices for, these Echo devices? What's the weather? Remind me 15 minutes to do this. What time is the store open to? Yeah. It's all, or tie into, turn my lights on, tie into the third-party apps and ecosystems. Okay, well, that's success, Dan, you're saying. No, it's not, because they don't generate any money from that. Yeah. There's no recurring revenue. They make no money from it. What they do, though, is incur costs from that, because nothing's free, folks. And what I mean is all that stuff goes through servers. It has to be processed. Who do you think pays for that? Did you get a monthly bill for your Alexa device for all of the requests you made? Of course you didn't. It's free. But Amazon is footing that bill for you. They're doing all the processing. They're running all the servers for it. So these things aren't making money. And it's considered, Business Insider apparently ran a story recently talking about this, about how it's a loss leader for Amazon. They don't make money off of it. That division apparently has made the counter argument, well, it's like a halo device. It brings brand awareness and everything. And that's true. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely true. But try putting that into a spreadsheet and try to explain that to investors, how that works. It's a very difficult proposition. And this has always been the irony for me for these Alexa devices. They failed at their primary mission, which was to get you to shop more at actual Amazon. But no one does that because no one likes to shop there, because no one likes the risk of misordering something. Yeah. Or like, what do you do when you shop and you want something? You want to check the price. You want to read what's the biggest feature on Amazon? The reviews. You want to see what people are saying about something. You want to compare and contrast. You want to see if there's another seller on Amazon that has a cheaper price. You can't do really any of that through voice. And so this whole technology has been just kind of a bust, or rather it's really hit its limits quite a while ago, which is why you don't really hear about it anymore or doing any life-changing things. So the question is, was Microsoft right to get out of this? Because they clearly were behind. By the time they entered the market, they weren't doing great anyway. But even still, long term, would this have changed anything? Would this have generated money from them? Jez points out that the Harman Kardon speaker was comparatively pretty expensive, and it was, but it was mostly because I don't think Microsoft was trying to absorb the costs. Don't forget, when Amazon sells you those super cheap speakers, again, do you think that's because it's the good of their heart? No, they're absorbing those costs. They're either selling them at a razor-thin margin or no margin at all, with this idea of being ubiquitous. Is no different than what Microsoft did with Xbox many moons ago, which is you sell the console for at cost, maybe even at loss, with the notion and the strategy that you make up revenue through game purchases and in-app purchases, which they get a cut of. So they don't need to sell you the console for. That's why consoles are so stupidly cheap compared to a PC, a gaming PC, because they're going to make their money on the back end. When you go buy a video game, they get a cut of that. And so that's how they make money. But these services don't make money for anybody. And same with Siri, right? It's just a convenient voice thing on your device, but it doesn't drive
Siri arguably only exists again is to fill that hole in the ecosystem. You know, like, oh, do we not have an assistant? We've got to have our own. And I think Apple's in a unique place where a lot of their costs are subsidized by the hardware, in that, you know, you pay a massive premium for most Apple hardware. That's your barrier for entry, is the hardware. You know, an iPhone costs $300 to sort of put together, but they sell for $1,000+. That's a massive profit margin there, which is a profit margin that most other tech companies or any company that sells products rarely gets to see. You know, I don't think Google sees it with the Pixel. I don't think maybe Surface sees it for their high-end stuff, but they're not moving units like iPhone, right? Like the iPhone is a mass market product with a profit margin so big, and Apple gets away with that, and I think that's how they're able to justify their other stuff. Whereas, like on the Alexa side, it's like they're making no money off any of the hardware other than maybe their high-end stuff. You know, like the Echo Studio, which is like a $200-$300 speaker. I'm sure they're making some money off of that. But the Echoes people buy, which is this thing here, like that was, I can't remember, $50 maybe. Like it's nothing, and there's no way they're making much, if any, profit off of this.
Yep, exactly. So I don't know. I would have, don't get me wrong, I would have liked Cortana around, but more in relation to Windows Phone. Like if Windows Phone was still around, I'd still want Cortana as a default voice assistant. But I don't think Cortana on PC went anywhere, was useful. And maybe that's because they didn't try hard enough. But at the same time, I feel like people just aren't really into talking to their PCs. And Alexa's available on PC. That's been out there for a long time. You could download it to any PC you want to. Have you been using it? I never have. Does anyone else? I don't know. So I think there's definitely modality restrictions here on how people use their devices. But yeah, I don't know where else this technology goes right now. And it's not even truly AI in that sense, right? It's more just machine learning kind of. It's barely contextually aware type technology as well. Maybe it'll improve. Maybe we'll all have little earpieces in the future where we walk around just like the movie Her, and that's the computer. I think we're a little bit far from that, though. Just like the argument with AR and virtual reality, it's just like it's almost there, but it's not there.
I'm not ready to fall in love with Alexa just yet. She's
right.
She hasn't been able to woo me just yet.
To be fair, I've actually never seen that movie.
You need to see it. You need to see her. You need to see it. You need to feel weird about what's going on screen as you watch it as well.
I respect Joaquin Phoenix as an actor. I think he's tremendous. I just don't enjoy watching him, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's perfect casting for the character he plays in the movie, I think, because it's like such a... Just like, I don't want to be rude to people who are like that, but like, it's just so, yeah.
Makes sense. Before we go on, it's our favorite time of the podcast. Yes, I need to do an ad read. Don't worry, folks. It is Manscaped. I can't promise I have anything funny this week. I'm almost stressed out and tired. I don't think I can be funny. I'll try my best. 'Tis the season for clean balls. Fa la 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 la. Now, I'm reading this. I didn't make this up. Our friends at Manscaped are helping you to clear your driveway for safe travels this holiday season. From stocking stuffers to white elephants, Manscaped's products are at the top of every wish list. Grab some crop mops for your pops. That's brilliant. Grab some crop mops for your pops, or the body buffer for the holiday lover. Win this year's white elephant gift. What's a white elephant gift? And help all the men in your life go from eggnog to nice hog. This December by going to manscaped.com and using code WCP for Windows Central Podcast, WCP, for 20% off plus free shipping. So this comes down to, you guys have heard this before. If not, I'm actually a big fan of the Manscaped stuff. I use it myself. And actually, this is true. I know some people buying this stuff for holiday gifts this year. There's we have a nephew in our life who's a teenager, 17, 18, and he's getting a Manscaped package. Good for him. But there's the Platinum package that's out there. You can get the Shears 2.0. They have their new Preserve Cologne, or as I like to call it, Cologna. Is also the body buffer. So they of course have their trimmers, which I highly recommend. They have their nose hair clippers, which are really nice because you're not going to stick yourself. But overall, these are really good products. They even make really nice underwear, which I've talked about before, because they don't have the seams that rub against your manly parts, so they don't feel that you don't get chafing, basically. What else do they got here? Let me go to their website because I have everything. The Lawnmower 4.0 is probably the biggest seller. That's the body hair trimmer that comes with different clips on. It's a really nice device, charges by Type-C. It has its own light on it in case you're a madman and like to shave in the dark. It's also waterproof or water resistant. You can take it in the shower, which is the main point here. The Platinum package, though, gives you everything. This is new. This is interesting. So normally it's $258. It's on sale for $150 though. And you get the Lawnmower 4.0. Yeah, it is a waterproof electric trimmer. The Weed Whacker, that's the ear and nose hair trimmer. A 2-in-1 shampoo plus conditioner, sea kelp infused. By the way, again, speaking from long-term experience here, don't skimp out on shampoos. There's a lot of innovative shampoos out there these days, and it really does make a big difference. Body wash, aloe-infused hydration. Deodorant, aluminum-free. That's always important. Crop preserver, anti-chafing ball deodorant. Crop reviver, ball spray. Magic Mat disposable shaving mats. You also get a travel bag and those Manscaped boxers, which is a $20 value. So you pick your underwear size and you get all this in one kit for $150, but you get 20% off if you use our coupon WCP again at manscaped.com. And you'll get all of that in time for the holiday seasons. And we use it here at Windows Central. I'm just saying. Jez Corden is also a big fan as he uses it on the Xbox 2 podcast. So you can't go wrong. I think this is, listen, if you got a guy in your life, this is an easy win, folks. Like you just go to the website, just pick out a couple things that's in your price range, done and done. I guarantee they'll be happy about it. It's good stuff. So go to manscaped.com, use the code WCP for Windows Central Podcast and get 20% off plus free shipping worldwide. As always, thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring us as it helps keep this podcast going and me going as well. I'll try to be funnier next time I do an ad read with theirs. Theirs, though, I think did a pretty good job. Zach, do you have any comments about Manscaped?
I don't, other than they are amazing, and I'm so glad they sponsor us.
That's the smart thing to say. All right. As I mentioned already at the top of the podcast, Adobe Fresco is in the Microsoft Store. We don't have anything else to say about that outside. It's kind of a cool thing to have. Yay. Let's go to the Pixel Fold discussion. Yep.
Sorry, just to give some context to that, I do hope that more Adobe apps show up in the store over time. It's good to see Fresco there. I think Elements is already in there, right? There's like a couple. There's Photoshop Lite or Photoshop Go, something else like that in there as well. Would be really cool to see all of them make their way to the Microsoft Store at some point. I've not tried the Fresco app. Does it rely on like that other stupid app that? Because I hate the Adobe Creative
Adobe
Suite.
Cloud.
Yeah, because it requires that stupid cloud app, which like runs in the background all the time. It's like, go away, leave me alone.
I think so. I think it's standalone. Is standalone.
Okay, that's good.
It's same thing with Photoshop Elements, which is what I use. Because it does. I use it primarily because it has all the tools I want. Photoshop's overkill for me, but also, it doesn't require Adobe Cloud. It's just a standalone application, and it runs well on ARM too. So. Yeah. Very cool stuff. Someone's just saying, Sarah brings up a good point. Isn't the Manscaped products multisexual? Technically it is. Obviously, it's geared towards
a blazer
guys.
blade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trimmer's a trimmer. It's going to do the same thing on either. But yeah, I mean, anyone could use this stuff, obviously. So yeah. Pixel Fold discussion. Again, I missed this story. I saw it on Twitter's and everything. But why don't you give the context of what's going on with folds?
Yeah, the only reason I wanted to bring it up really is because renders, not official renders, but unofficial renders of it were published. Those renders being based on real images of the device that those people who made the renders had seen. So it's supposed to be a rather accurate representation of what this device is going to look like. And the reason I wanted to bring it up here is because those renders reveal a device that looks very similar to the Surface Duo, except obviously it has a single screen foldable on the inside and a cover screen on the outside. It's not an identical shape and size to the Duo. I think it's still a little bit narrower, but it's certainly of a wider sort of Oppo Find N kind of shape, but on a larger scale. I don't think it'll be as small as the Oppo Find N, because the Oppo Find N is a very small foldable. I think the Pixel Fold will be bigger than that, but it's of a very similar shape and size, which is more Passport-like. In fact, apparently the code name for this Pixel Fold device is Passport. And I wanted to bring it up here because it's a really interesting I look into what a Surface Duo could look like if they were to decide to sort of take this form factor and turn it into a foldable, a single screen foldable with a covered screen. And based on the renders, I think it looks gorgeous. And, if the renders also show a device which, funnily enough, has bezels on the inside along the top and the bottom, which is really weird for a foldable. But I'm assuming it's going to house front-facing camera tech and whatnot. But yeah, Dad, if you take a look at, if you can find them and take a look, I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are on the potential renders for what this device will look like. I do think it looks amazing. I'm really, honestly, I think, because I don't think we'll see a Duo 3 in the spring of next year, and this Pixel Fold device is supposed to be out in the spring. That will probably be my next phone that will hold me over to until the Duo 3, because yeah, I love the Duo and I love the dual screen nature of the Duo, but I think I love the shape of it more. I really just like this sort of wider and shorter thing, because I was talking to someone about this recently. Actually, these are 5.8 inch displays, which isn't big on paper. A 5.8 inch screen size phone is tiny on paper, but on the Duo it feels massive because of the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio makes all the difference. And, the Galaxy Fold, one of the reasons why I really, really dislike the Galaxy Fold is because of the aspect ratio of it. It's just the whole thing is wrong. And the only reason the Galaxy Fold has done so well was because, one, it was first, and two, it's the only massive company, Samsung, shipping foldables in Western markets. All of the other awesome foldables, for the most part, are China only for the most part. The Xiaomi Mix Fold 2, which is another excellent looking foldable, which finally rivals the Surface Duo in thinness and has all the aspect ratios correct. China only. The Oppo Find N, which was basically the smallest sort of foldable, also China only. And now there are rumors that, the Oppo Find N 2 is coming very soon, and that's supposed to be coming to Western markets, or at least some Western markets. And that'd be really cool to see. But there's always issues with these China versions of Android where they do have global ROMs, but a lot of them just struggle with notifications. I had a Xiaomi Mi Mix 3 when that came out a couple of years back, and I liked that phone a lot, but the software just refused to give me notifications, even though it was running a global ROM.
Yeah, Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, complains a lot about that. That's a trademark of a lot of Chinese brands, unfortunately.
It's because they're very aggressive with battery management, and they're all programmed to just kill apps in the background to the point where even Toast notifications just stop coming through, and it's really annoying. And some ROMs allow you to sort of force those apps to stay open. Some give you the option and still don't. You're like, it's a real minefield. Whereas for some reason, Western Android phones just are like, yeah, you can have every notification, have it twice, why not? And which I prefer. I do prefer that. I want, the whole point of a phone is it's supposed to alert me when someone's trying to reach me. If someone messages me on Telegram or Slack and I don't get that notification until I look at my phone next, there's no point in me having that notification sent at all, because I haven't seen it when it arrived or when it was supposed to be sent originally. And so, if there's an emergency, I've missed out on that emergency. So, that's not good. So this Pixel Fold will be really interesting because it will obviously be running the Western version of Android, which will have notifications, and it'll be using Android stock sort of taskbar thing along the bottom and that multitasking experience, which won't be automatic like on the Duo, but it's certainly a big step forward compared to what we've had previously. The Galaxy Fold 4 now has that taskbar as well, and it does make multitasking easier. Again, it's still not an automatic process like on the Duo, but it's a big step forward to the point where there's no longer much friction if you did want to initiate a multitasking instance. And this is only going to get better as we go on.
Can I answer now how I feel about it? It's funny because you asked me that like 5 minutes ago.
I did. I gave you a chance just in case you hadn't looked it up. I was like, I'll put it in your head to go and look it up as I finish my thought
you're
here.
filibustering. All right. It's fine. No, that's all I have to say about it. No, it does look nice, right? I think this is actually kind of what people want the Fold 3 the Duo 3 rather, to look like. I will still say that, it's got a phone bump on the back. That ruins the whole reason of why I like Duo in the first place. What do you mean Google can't fix that?
No. It turns out nobody can fix that. Otherwise, it would be fixed by now.
Yeah. So no, I think it looks really nice. I still find it weird having I still like dual screens, and this is $1 million question you and I both face, which is, will Microsoft make it so it's like a false 2-screen device, right, which is what I think we both want, versus just opening it up to be a tablet experience. Because what I don't want, I really don't want, is a Duo 3 to open up and be a default tablet experience that's mobile. What I mean by that, of course, is the way that the Samsung operates, which is when you launch an app, it just automatically goes full screen, a single app at a time, versus the dual screen experience.
The problem is that's such a hard sell for a device that is now no longer dual screen. Because in marketing, like how do you sell that as an advantage? I think it's.
I think the only option you can do there, and it's all software, is you just simply give the user the option,
the choice. Yeah.
I would be happy with that. Just like, it's simple. Default, not default. You can have, as default, a dual screen experience or a single screen experience. Your choice. You just flick a switch, and if you flick the switch to 2 screens, then an app opens on each side, just like Surface Duo 2 does. As we mentioned before, the hinge on Duo 2 is, the software doesn't see that. It's already doing this. You have a physical hinge that mentally helps separate the two, but it doesn't need to be there. You could have a single screen folding experience and still have this has been demonstrated before. If you plug in Duo into a secondary display, that's exactly what it'll look like. You'll have a secondary display. It'll be a single screen experience, but it'll still operate as dual screen. And you just give people the choice. You can have that, or you flick a switch and it's just a full screen experience. I will even allow them to default to the single screen experience if they even feel that's going to sell more and an easier thing. But just give me that option of that single toggle to simulate what Duo 2 already does, and I'm a happy camper.
See, I think, if you look at the Duo, so I've got my Duo 2 here in my hand. Let's pretend this is the Duo 3 and this is one screen here. My assumption is that the experience on Duo 3 would be apps open full screen. And to initiate multitasking, you just do. I can't do it. God damn it! You just do that, and then it gives you the screen on the other side. That is, I imagine, how they're going to do it. I mean, there might be the option as well to automatically do it, but would they draw just a virtual sort of black line down the middle? I guess maybe they would, but I don't know. I really don't know how they're going to.
Allow us to have 2 different wallpapers on each side. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Because it's just the Surface. Because you got to remember, this is a Surface product. This isn't any old Android OEM. This is Surface, and they do things they make weird choices for the sake of simplicity. And if I'm just thinking how I imagine a Surface engineer thinks. Do they want to have an option in the settings app to initiate that dual screen multitasking as a default mode? Or would they rather the user just do that thing where they pick up the app and drag it to one side, just like how snapping on Windows works? you don't have a mode in Windows where it's like you open an app and it automatically snaps to one side. The snapping functionality within Windows is a user experience that you sort of initiate yourself manually. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. It's really difficult to sort of figure it out. And I think here's the other reason why I don't think they'll do what you've just said, Dan, is because I think if they are going to change the hardware up that dramatically and make it a basically Xiaomi Mix Fold, Vivo X Fold kind of device for the Duo 3, would they want to change the name? I think they might. And if they are trying to sort of distance themselves from the Duo, which, let's be fair, doesn't have the most positive brand recognition because of how it launched, maybe they would want to also step away from the whole dual screen aspect of it, and therefore they wouldn't include that as a mode that you can turn on. But I don't know. This is all speculation at this point, so who knows?
I don't like the speculation. It's bad. It's making me angry because I still don't know if they just go down this route. So what are they going to do? Basically, make the Microsoft Pixel Fold 3, because that's what it would be.
Yeah.
Like, why would I go for, like, at that point, why would I choose the Microsoft one? Because it has like phone link built into it. I mean, the fact is, the Pixel experience, I would still argue to this day, as far as single screen phones go, if I had to pick an Android phone today, the Pixel 7 would be it, right? I wouldn't get Samsung.
This is why I think it's so important, and why they have started venturing down the path of customizing Android and making Android, giving it a Microsoft flavor, because that's the appeal that Samsung has for lots of Samsung customers. Is I prefer Samsung's version of Android. Microsoft needs to have that same story, I think, if they are going to go down this route of basically copying the other hardware, because then they don't differentiate on the hardware side alone. They have to differentiate in the software, and Microsoft's differentiation there could be, well, this is the Windows phone, as in like it shares the same UI as Windows does. It's that familiar.
That's a tough sell. That's just as a tough sell. I don't think most people are going to make that connection. We'll see what happens. It's a tough problem. I get both arguments. Obviously, the chasing the single screen experience is probably the right mainstream thing to do if you want success, but I still find it slightly boring / I don't know how you separate yourself then from the rest of the devices out there. So outside of size is the only real direction you have for being different in the software, maybe. But then again, when it comes to the software is different. I guarantee you a Pixel software experience will probably be better, because the Pixel software stuff is really cool, especially what they do with the camera. And Microsoft can't compete there. So it's just like, that's going to be a losing battle too. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't really want to do kind of review stuff. I'll just quickly, because we are getting a little long here in the podcast, just want to quickly talk about the HP Dragonfly Folio G3, which is a mouthful. And this is, the name's a little weird because it's G3, which obviously implies it's the third generation. And technically it is. It's just, it wasn't always called the Dragonfly Folio. It was called the Elite Folio. And before that, there was the Spectre Folio. And so they've kind of messed with so the Spectre Folio, I think that's what it was. Yeah, the Spectre Folio was a premium consumer device. If you remember, it had the brown football leather, literally football leather. It was on the outside of the device, wrapped around. And it ran a Y series processor, I want to say. This was the fanless version of Intel, and it wasn't very good. My biggest issue, though, was the touchpad wasn't precision. It was really not a great touchpad, but the overall concept was brilliant. Really liked it. Then they came out with the Elite Folio, and that was the Windows on ARM device, which I really liked. And it was cool about it. It had the pen. It was one of the first devices we saw with the pen silo, or the tray, I should say, above the keyboard, which is something that Microsoft later went on to use sort of with the Surface Pro 8. And they also use it, of course, with Laptop Studio. So it had a flat pen, and then it would go into this tray. And when it was in that tray, not only did it hold it, but it also would recharge it. And what was cool about the Folio design, of course, it was to pull it forward, this thing. So it operated just like a laptop, but then you could pull the screen forward over the keyboard while keeping the touchpad exposed. And then you had a full screen experience, which is great for video or drawing. And then you could pull it forward even further and lay the screen down, and it would be at a slight angle like a drafting board. And what's cool about all these posture shifts was you never had to remove it from your lap, unlike current 360 devices, where then you have to flip around and expose the keyboard to whatever, if you're putting on a dirty table or something like that. And I really thought the Folio design was just brilliant. And then, of course, we saw Microsoft make the Laptop Studio, which is effectively that design. It's just in more of a workstation format with a discrete GPU, at least optionally. It's a much bigger, heavier device aimed at a different audience. Now HP is back with the Dragonfly Folio, and that's why it's called the G3. Technically, it is the third generation of the Folio series, but it's been shifting from Spectre to their EliteBook, now to Dragonfly. And Dragonfly is their premier. It's higher than EliteBook. It's like, you can think of it as a combo between the EliteBook series and the Spectre series, more aimed at business, but it's brings all their best technologies onto one device, and it makes it more expensive that way. So what's neat about this one, they went back to Intel. So this isn't an ARM device now. This is using Intel 12th Gen U series processor, which had let, I was just like, oh, here we go again. They did this before, where they had a tablet like a experience. It was like a Surface Pro, was ARM. Then they came out with an Intel version, and they kind of ruined it, in my opinion, because they did change up the design. So I was thinking the same thing was going to be here. Plus, at the very least, it's like, oh, they're going to put Intel 12th Gen in there. It can run a little hot. Now you're going to have fans and all that kind of stuff. And sure enough, it does have fans. It has two intakes, or vents, I should say, one on the left side and one on the right side. It's like Surface Laptop Studio, where they're horizontal intakes and outtakes. So there's a slight vent on the bottom, but that's not the main primary one. And that's what's cool about Laptop Studio too, is there's no bottom intake to it. But I've only had this for a couple of days, and it's brilliant. So this version also has 5G in it. It is optional 4G, 5G. You can get optional OLED display, 3000 by 2000 resolution. I just have full HD, which is fine. This is aimed at the mobile worker, the person who's absolutely mobile all the time. It's around a 13.5, 14-inch display, 3:2 aspect ratio. And they changed up the pen this year. So they got away from the flat pen with the silo, which I really enjoyed, but they found was less comfortable than a round pen, which kind of makes sense. And so they put the round pen now. It attaches on the side of the device, and I'll get a photo of this. This is so brilliant. So of course the problem with putting it's a magnet, right? 6-side device. We all know the problem there is they get knocked off easily, and it can get knocked off. Don't get me wrong, but it's pretty strong, dude. They invented this really neat thing. There's a hole, like a kind of a rectangular hole on the side of the laptop that's small. It looks almost like a port. And then on the pen, there's a little matching peg. But that peg only comes out when you bring it close to the laptop, because when you bring it close to the laptop, the magnet pulls out this little peg, which then goes into that hole, and then it attaches. So it's not only just the magnets holding it on the side of the device, but there's like a little dock thing, a little clip that almost goes in there that's only pulled out with the magnet. It's wild. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even notice it. It has the beauty of it. You don't notice it until you just slowly pull out the pen, and you can see there's a little piece that's still like in there. And so it's meant to give you a little bit more security with the pen attached. You can still knock it off, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely one of the more strong versions of this pen, and the pen works brilliantly. It rivals Surface in my opinion. If not, it's better than Surface. This thing has a first I've never seen in a device. It has an 8-megapixel front-facing camera, which HP has been really crushing it in front-facing cameras. They're the first to go to 5 megapixels across many of their devices, and those were already really good. Now this one's 8 megapixel, and it's pretty awesome. It's a really, it rivals the Pro 9 5G in terms of software and everything. It's just really nice. But the keyboard is their Elite keyboard, which I adore. It has a huge touchpad, not haptic, wish it were, but it's not. It doesn't use real leather, of course. It's a polyurethane. It only goes around the top and then part of the bottom, which also acts as like a way to carry it as a handle. But this thing, I'm in love with it. This for me is the perfect convertible 2-in-1 Ultrabook laptop design. If you're just someone who's mobile and you're an information worker, you're in web, you're in email, you're doing Skype, you're doing Microsoft Teams, and you take notes and you want to use the pen. I think this is the ultimate device. This is the only thing I need on a trip. It's not heavy. It's not big. It feels great to hold because being a folio type design, it's sort of like almost like a book where, well, it's thinner at the front and at the back, it kind of loops around. So it's a little bit larger, which makes it great to hold as you're carrying it because it just naturally conforms to your hand. The battery life seems good on it. And about those fans, I was worried about them because it's like 12th gen. And it's a good processor. It's a Core i7. It's going to be as fast, they say, as the Dragonfly G3 straight up laptop. But it's the quietest fans I've ever seen on a laptop. Like you don't hear the fans. I haven't heard them yet. It's basically completely silent. They said it's actually quieter than your average quiet room. That's how quiet the fan. They use a new fan technology in there, and I'm telling you, it's got dual fans, but you can't hear them. I imagine maybe I'm sure I'll figure out a way to make them hear. But I'm just saying, my regular usage, I've never heard them come on, which I really, really like, and it doesn't get hot either. I think this thing is just awesome. It's not cheap, starts around $2,000, but the Dragonfly G3 clamshell laptop was also like that. But you can get that now for about $1,300 starting. And I highly recommend it. So this price will come down, of course, but man, it is just in the 5G on it. Of course, you know how I feel about that. This also has the human presence detection. So you can leave it open, and if you walk away, it'll automatically lock the device. And then when you approach, it automatically turns the display back on and logs you in via Windows Hello, which is great. It even has a feature, has two other features in it. One is if you turn your head and look away from the display after a couple of seconds, it'll dim the display, which saves battery life and also prevents others from looking at you or looking at the screen. And if someone is looking over your shoulder, looking at your display, it can detect that and send you a notification saying, hey, someone's looking at your screen behind you, which is wild. I think that's such a cool thing. Again, it doesn't make sense necessarily for consumers, but for enterprise, which is what this is geared at.
If you work in the FBI or your Secret Service agent, great feature.
Right. And of course, you can get this with SureView, their screen privacy feature. Mine doesn't have that, but which is a button that you press, and then it uses this amazing technology to dramatically reduce the viewing angle of your screen. So basically, if someone's looking at, like side-eyeing your laptop, they won't be able to read it, which is such a cool technology. But yeah, it's got a nice display, just 60 hertz, no 120, obviously. They're really focused on battery life of this, just like the other Dragonfly. I don't know. I'm in love with this thing. I think it's, I love the Dragonfly G3. I think of a straight up clamshell laptop, it's my favorite clamshell laptop. And that's why I've been using endlessly stuff I talked about on this podcast quite a lot. But this thing now is sort of even better because it transforms, right? You can use it as a tablet and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited about it. I kind of wish Microsoft would lean into this. I find it better than the Surface Pro. I do. And I love the Surface Pro design, but this is what the evolution of a 2-in-1 should be, I think, for this category. I don't see the advantage of the other way. I just don't. Like even with Surface Pro, like, you can flip the keyboard around and you get all display. Yeah, that's cool. But now you don't have the touchpad. Like, this is neat because I can bring the screen forward, which is great for a tray table on an airplane while I want to watch a movie, but I still have access to the touchpad. So I don't have to rely on touching the display, especially if you don't like getting fingerprints on your screen. You can just use a touchpad and still navigate around and still do things quickly. That's a cool thing to do. And taking notes on it, I think, is even better. So that's my quick thoughts on that. I'll try to get the review out for that soon, but obviously I have a lot of other reviews to do. But yeah, if you're on the fence about that device, I say just go get it right now. But you can wait for my more in-depth review, and I'm sure other sites will be having their reviews as well. So there you go. So there we go. I think we're kind of done with the podcast. Did you want to do anything? Did you get anything for Cyber Monday?
No, nothing super relatable to the podcast. I bought a couple of Hue lights because I have made the terrible mistake of investing in the Hue ecosystem, and I'm now at a point where I can't just switch ecosystems without spending loads of money to get that done. So I'm just sort of all in on Hue at this point. So I bought I bought those. What are they called? The play bar lights. They're like the sort of long, they're not like long, but they're like that wide sort of lights. And yeah, they're gonna be pretty cool. And I'm gonna stick them around my TV, and they're gonna look nice.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big. We've had that discussion. I've gone heavily into Govee recently, which I still recommend over Hue. If you haven't started a system or thinking about going, just go Govee. Don't go to Hue. Hue is too expensive. Mm-hmm. And the reason I've been getting a lot of Govee stuff is because they do things simply that Hue doesn't do, and they have more options. And I love their TV lights, which is the first thing I would get if you're going to go get any of this stuff. Get the TV lighting from Govee because it'll change your life. It's something you're going to use every single day. If you watch TV and watch movies, it's going to greatly enhance your experience. I think it's great. So I didn't get any Govee stuff for Cyber Monday, although I should have. Even I didn't get to write up any deals for that when I probably should have. But I'll do some maybe over the holiday for the holiday season when those go on sale because I think they're really worth people's time and won't break the bank. You can get this up for pretty affordable prices. I did pick up a Eufy automatic door lock finally. That's the one piece I haven't had in my house. I've had it before, but not Eufy. Yeah.
Was it Eufy in the news this week for being bad?
Well, were they?
I don't know. There was maybe a security vulnerability was discovered in the cameras or something. I can't remember.
Let's see. Eufy security cameras send data to the cloud without consent, and that's not the worst part. Oh boy,
that's a great headline.
Oh well. I don't have any cameras.
Oh, okay. Good.
I don't really have that many cameras indoors. Mostly outdoors. Although I do have a couple, but. I don't care if someone uses my video doorbell, I guess. I don't know.
It's facing outside, so you should be all right.
Yeah, it's like, all right. Yeah, this is a concern, though. I guess it doesn't surprise me.
I mean, yeah, come on. And all of these smart security home system things are going to be pinging the cloud. I use Amazon's Blink. For my indoor security cameras, and the reason I do it is because they're battery powered. They don't have to be hardwired anywhere, so you can move them around. And what's really great about them is they're not on unless they detect motion, and also you can just turn them off completely so that they're not even detecting motion. But since they're not hardwired anywhere, you can when I'm in the house, I just put them in a box. I'm like, oh, cool, they're not
right.
And then when I go to leave or go somewhere, then I put them in places so they can pick. Basically, I only have them for break-in purposes. I don't have them for any other reason.
Right.
And so they're actually really cool. So they're great for renters because obviously if you're renting, you can't really drill holes into walls to install cameras anywhere. So that's why I use the Blink cameras, and I've actually really liked them. I think they're really good.
Yeah. Well, I'm still going to install my my lock, which it's on Wi-Fi, but it's also fingerprint recognition and all that kind of stuff. What else? Oh yeah, we got a we got the Dyson cordless vac, which is mad expensive. But we already had a Dyson vacuum, the bigger one. And it's a pretty intense vacuum, and yeah, they make pretty cool technology.
I used to vacuum all of the time because you have to when you have carpet. Until I got a Roomba, and now I only vacuum once a month.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I had a Roomba back in 2004. And I used
They're
it
a lot smarter these days.
Yeah, I may get one again, but we still have to clean up and organize this house a little bit better. Plus, it's dual level, so it's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, you need to then.
and our dog is does not like vacuums, like all dogs. So
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Always a challenge, but yeah. And other than that, I just picked up a couple other little things, but nothing major for electronics or anything like that. I don't believe.
Did you watch the Andor finale?
I still have not watched any. I'm still like on episode 4, so maybe this weekend.
Dude, you gotta watch it. It's good. It's real good.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. It's really, really good. So yeah, maybe this weekend I'll try to catch up on it. So
fair enough.
Cool stuff. All right, well, let's wrap it up. We'll do Q&A quickly with the audience, of course, for the live podcast. If you're listening to this recorded, though, you don't get to hear that, but you can join us every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. You can also watch the old video clips there as well. We always appreciate it. So you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and follow Zach at ZAC. I almost got it wrong there. ZACBOWDEN. It was so automated that I almost didn't know if I was doing it right. But as always, hit us up with your questions and comments there, and we love it. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Man, my laptop studio Bluetooth is really struggling. Like, it's like if I move my mouse, the audio on my headphones starts to cut in and out.
Yeah, Bluetooth is still not amazing.
Yeah. I saw a few questions from Gus earlier asking about whether or not, what we think Microsoft will do in regards to whether or not Microsoft would do a 360-degree folding device or a dual screen and a single screen. Based on what I know, the answer is they're not going to do any of that. It'll be one device, and it will. I'm still trying to figure out what it would actually be, if it would be a dual screen or single screen. But it'll be one device, and it will not be a 360-degree hinge if it's a single screen foldable. It will be a 180-degree hinge, because that is the most affordable way to do it right now. And that is the biggest goal with Duo 3 above everything else, is to make it more affordable to put together. That was their number one goal. It was the goal one, make it more affordable, and then everything else comes afterwards. So putting a 360-degree hinge on it with a single screen foldable, I think would be the opposite of that. Because remember, they may be able to do it in patents, and they may be able to technically do it on paper, but being able to produce it at scale in a factory is a whole nother beast that they have to figure out. And I don't think they're there yet.
Someone's asking again about Surface Neo. Is it dead? Yes, it's dead. It's been dead.
Yep, that one is dead.
It's going to stay dead.
I know Panos in an interview with The Verge, they asked him about the Neo, I think, or something like that. And Panos said the whole, maybe we'll get back to it. If they get back to it, it will not be as a dual screen device. That's all I will say. People said to me, it means the Neo's not dead. The dual screen Neo is very much dead. Is Microsoft working on making ARM CPUs with their own silicon? They not for consumers. So yeah. So no is the answer, pretty much. They will partner with Qualcomm and continue to do so. Have you watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special?
No.
I have not. I saw the trailer for the movie, the Volume 3 movie, though. Yeah. It looks interesting.
It's going to be sad.
Is it the final installment, Volume 3?
Yeah.
They all die.
Probably.
I hope dual screen devices for Microsoft are not dead in the future. Well, if the Duo 3 ends up being a single screen foldable, I think it's very unlikely that they will do another dual screen device. I think once they make that jump to single screen foldable on any form factor, any future foldable form factor will also be single screen foldable. It doesn't make sense. The dual screen, it just doesn't make sense for them to have a dual screen Neo and a single screen foldable Duo, if you get what I mean. Once they make that jump on the Duo, the Neo, if they are ever to return to the Neo, will have to just sort of follow in its footsteps. When will the Surface Laptop Studio 2 get released, and what specs will it have? Last I heard is they were targeting the spring for Laptop Studio 2, and I would assume it will have Intel 12th Gen, Alder Lake, hopefully P Series. I don't know, to be fair with you. Hopefully P Series, and it will probably be an RTX 40 series card. I actually don't know what the graphics card will be.
It could even be 13th at that point. We expect 13th gen mobile to be announced at CES. That's usually how it goes.
That's only a few months before shipping. I don't know if they'll have turnaround that quick
right.
for it.
Not that there's going to be a huge difference between 12th and 13th gen. So
yeah.
Tyran Goose, you always ask the same questions. When Apple comes out with their VR AR headsets, will Microsoft finally and seriously push for their own Windows AR glasses? No. I think it needs to be proven in the market first. And I still am not convinced this stuff is going to take off for regular consumers for at least another 4 years, maybe.
Do we know when the Surface Studio 3 is coming? We do not. we only just got a Studio 2 Plus. Be thankful, because it's been 4 years since the last one.
Did I miss any Nuvia news? No. Besides the fact it's not called, well, it's going to be called the Orion chip, not Nuvia chip. That's all we know. Nice. I'm looking at the Surface Studio laptop. My Surface Book 3 is up for warranty in around spring. Yeah, I mean, Surface Studio laptop is, as I wrote over the Black Friday, Cyber Monday stuff, is one of my favorite laptops. And I think if you're going to buy one Surface, that's the one I would get. I would take what was that? Foldable, if it could be 180 or folded back to a single screen. I mean, that's probably the goal, but
it's just not the LG.
The LG technology is still untested. It was a prototype. It was, they still need to develop it further. And then how do you get from that to mass production while keeping costs down? So that is in the cards, but there's a big gap between when something is shown off as a prototype before it hits mass markets. Yeah. I mean, put it this way, I saw Nokia show me a foldable screen in like 2012.
Right. I remember that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did that take before it didn't even come from Nokia, but how long did it take to come to market? A long time.
I remember specifically, I can picture it so clearly in my head. I remember seeing a video of a flexible display, I assume it was an OLED, running the Windows Phone home screen. And the demo they were doing was that this thing can bend in whichever way you want, and you can still use it and touch it and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is the future.
Yep.
Too bad they didn't realize it was a future without Windows Phone.
Yeah. Didn't Phil Spencer say he's not into VR? Kind of. He's not into wired VR in the living room. Doesn't want wires laying all the way around. I also think, I don't know. It's still niche. I think he still sees gaming mostly as a community thing you involve with your family and other people. Therod's been mentioning Intel 12th Gen has performance issues. Have either of you noticed any issues with 12th Gen? I don't know. I need more info than what you means by performance issues.
To be fair, I will say I've been messing around with the Laptop 5 because I'm reviewing the Laptop 5. It does feel less snappy. I don't know snappy? It doesn't, like, clicking around and just clicking into things. Like I feel like I'm waiting a beat longer than normal. Versus
every other 12th gen I've used, I can definitely feel how it's faster than 11th gen for me.
You think? Okay, so maybe it might just be the difference in refresh rate going from my laptop Studio to the Studio 5.
Yeah, that might. Yeah, if you're running at 120 hertz, I might feel different. But if you run the benchmarks, I guarantee you, compared to laptop 4, you're going to see a massive difference.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm actually doing the battery test right now. That's why it's in the background.
Didn't Surface have a patent for a folded back? Something like that, yeah. But they're not going to they don't make the displays. LG or Samsung make the displays. So it's going to be their technology for the actual display. Microsoft may have a patent for a device that incorporates a display that folds like that, sure.
Dan, where are the Surface Pro 9 reviews?
I know, yeah, good question. Well, they sent it to me 5 days, at least 5 days before the review embargo, I would have gotten the reviews done, but I got it a day before, and then I lost kind of interest.
Yeah, Dan
And
got
plus, a lot
really
happened.
busy doing other things. Yeah.
And then we got.
So
Then we
I'm
had the
reviewing the laptop 5. Dan is. I think you've already written. Have you written any of the Pro 9 review?
Yeah, some of it's done. I know my thoughts on it. I just got to put it all together and find time to write. It's not because I don't want to.
Try. I always say this to myself. I'm like, I'm going to try using dictation in Word. I'm just going to talk, and it never comes out as an article.
There's no way I could do that. Yeah. Are there any plans of redesigning the regular Surface laptop line, possibly designed similar to Surface Laptop Studio? Who knows? I don't think we know at this point. I think it's safe to say that at this point, it's probably due for a major refresh. So yeah, something will change. I don't think it needs to change dramatically though.
Are we going to see a Surface Studio 2 Plus review? I mean, Dan's got one, so I assume whenever he's got the time to get around to it, then yes.
That'll be an easier one to review because it's mostly going to be focusing on the benchmarks.
It's just benchmarks, yeah.
And I'll point to the Thunderbolt 4 ports. But I think it's interesting. I think the question is interesting of like how much faster it is and how
you'll
much
have to test external GPU support. I mean, I know it should work, right? But it would be interesting to sort of see it work.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Would you like a 490 in a Studio 2? Well, now you can.
Can't. No, you can't.
Oh, you can't?
Not yet. There are no eGPUs that can fit the 40 series as far as I know.
Interesting.
They're that big. I know the Razer ones I don't think will fit. So that's not to say there won't be, but as of right now, I don't believe there are.
Fair enough.
How's the carbon fiber e-bike? It's pretty awesome, although I can't really ride it now because it's freaking cold out. But yeah, I mean, I put the review up on Windows Central, believe it or not. It's there if you go search for, what was the name of that bike? Now I'm forgetting. It's off the top of my head. Oh, Utopia. Here, I'll drop the link in there. The funny thing about that review, as Zach knows, I just dropped the link for it there. I've had more offers for other e-bike reviews since that went up. So maybe I'm going to do a side racket. I should just open up my own blog, just random Dan Tech. What happened to the modular Surface Studio? I mean, it was just a patent. Yeah. And they kind of did do it, as Zach was pointing out with his hub.
Yeah.
His hub is partially modular.
Yeah, I do think that's where that effort ended up, is in the Surface Hub. The reason for it is because the whole point, the problem with having a modular design that uses proprietary modules, I guess, is that it needs to be a like a mainstream product for it to make sense, or it's a very niche product and you only release a module once every 5 years, which is what they're doing with the Surface Hub. So it doesn't make sense, I think, for the studio, because then it would be like, all right, NVIDIA, are you willing to build a GPU that fits in this module? Probably not. They're probably not willing to do that, but maybe, and so, yeah, I don't think it fully works. It's a nice idea, though.
Have you all deleted your Twitter accounts? Nope, no plans to.
No.
Unless things get like stupid bad on there. I'm not one of these people.
Unless I can get 50,000 followers on another social network.
Right.
It's not happening.
I still need it for work. It still helps. I'm not as I hate to use that word, snowflakey. I'm not as sensitive about this stuff. I tuned a lot of it out. Yeah. You can ignore a lot of it. Yeah. So I don't see it as that big of a deal. Is Windows 12 going to be? Oh, sorry. Is Windows 12 going to be any different to Windows 11? No, they just changed the name. It's going to be exactly the same. They actually just back the Windows team, and there's 10. There's no new features. It's just Yeah, of course it's going to be different.
Aren't the specs on the Studio 2 Plus very low? They're not low. They're just not for the price you pay. They are not what they could be. The 11th gen laptop series processor is powerful enough for a lot of tasks. It's not the most powerful. Same goes for the GPU in there being a 3060.
That's a good GPU though. The 3060
yeah, it's
is
not
a solid
bad. That's
GPU.
what I'm saying. It's not low. It's not low, but you're paying $4,700
because of the screen.
I
It's
know.
a
Yeah, I
screen.
know.
Yeah, and the fact that the actual computer is tiny as hell.
Yeah, the engineering that goes into it is insane.
I will say, comparatively speaking, it should blow away Surface Studio 2, which is sort of like the metric, really, you're comparing it to.
Well, what's interesting
there's no other device. Yeah.
What's interesting is the laptop Studio is basically a portable version of the Studio 2 Plus. It has the exact same CPU.
Right.
The only difference is the GPU is a bit better. It's the 3060 versus the 3050 in the Studio 2 Plus. Obviously, the cooling, I'm sure the Studio 2 Plus can be cooled better, which means it could probably sustain for longer than the laptop. Right. But in short bursts, they should be pretty evenly matched on the CPU side, at least.
I expect to be pretty happy with the Studio 2 Plus. Like, the performance is going to be good enough, I think. I mean, could be better, sure. I mean, the big thing was with Intel 12 Gen, you're going to get way more cores and you get way more performance boost. That would have been nice, but it is what it is. Any news on Intel working on its own 5G modem? I think they do have their own Intel 5G modems.
Also need to get Zach verified. Excuse me, I'm already verified. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't want to hear more about this topic.
Will ARM processors ever get support for Thunderbolt in eGPUs? Maybe. I will say it's not. Whenever I talk to Qualcomm about it, they don't consider it to be a priority for the devices they're currently creating in the market that they're going after.
Well, ultrabooks.
Yeah, super thin, light laptops for mobile workers, which I think you can get away with that. As you know, I have a lot of Thunderbolt 4 devices. I've never used Thunderbolt 4. I'm not saying it's not valuable. It's nice for docking, but you can dock without Thunderbolt 4. It'll be interesting more with the Nuvia/Orion chipsets to see what happens there. But maybe.
What are your guesses for new products in spring 2023? So my guesses are Laptop Studio 2 and Surface Go, maybe? Surface Go 4? I'll have to check on that. But those are the only ones that really come to mind. Because the Laptop 5 just came out. The Pro 9 just came out. Yeah,
Sarah says...
Yeah.
Sorry. Sarah says Surface Studio is probably powerful enough for our intended target audience, right? It's not a gaming machine and workstation. Absolutely. That's the tough thing with covering this is everybody, they're going to compare it to their Core i9 desktop. And it's like, it just, there is really nothing it compares to. So it's one of a kind in its category, basically. And the fact is, we've always pointed out, most people do not need a Surface Studio. It's nice to have. It makes a great, just regular computer. Don't get me wrong, but not at that price, right? But it's meant for engineers and graphic designers and those people. And if you're not one of those people, your opinion on it and its performance is kind of almost irrelevant. Now, if a 3D CAD designer came at me and was like, it still sucks for performance, I can't do my job well with it, I want to, that I would classify as very important feedback. If you're like, I want to play Doom on it, and you can play Doom on it, like it'll be fine, but it's not up to your specs for gaming, then I would disregard that.
Go for Laptop 5 AMD. Yeah, Go 4 would probably be spring next year. I don't know about an AMD version of Laptop 5. Originally, I thought that they could maybe delay the AMD version, but Microsoft's on record response to there being no AMD version alongside the Intel one was that it wasn't this generation. They just didn't want to do it. So it would be weird for them to then launch an AMD version in a few months after saying that. It's like, well, you said you didn't want to do it, and then you did it. So what are you talking about? So I don't know. I think maybe they're gonna skip AMD entirely for Laptop 5. That's not to they did build them internally. They did have AMD Ryzen want to say 6,000 series. That sounds about right, doesn't it? 5,000, 4,000. I don't know what. Maybe it was 5,000. What's the laptop for?
5,000, I think.
Okay, it would have been 6,000 then. They definitely have Ryzen 6,000 internally, and they just didn't ship it. So whatever reason that is, I don't know, but they didn't. Will we ever see a Surface dial refresh, or is the dial technically dead? No, I'd argue as you said, perfect. You actually literally stopped my joke. I should have read your thing. I was going to say, no, the dial's not dead. The dial's just finished. It doesn't get any better than what that is as a product. Oh, does the Pro 9 support dials, like on-screen dial support?
I don't see why it wouldn't. Doesn't seem like.
Or alternatively, I don't see why it would.
Yeah, it's always kind of a weird device. I think the laptop studio question would be more relevant. But yeah, I think the dial is just it's a low volume shipping device.
I don't think they even produce it anymore.
Do they still sell it? Yeah, looks like they do. So. Yeah, $99. You can buy that
in stock.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You can buy that, but you can't buy a Surface Duo. The lead image is still a Surface Book, though, so clearly they haven't updated much.
No. Yeah. So, do you use the Huawei 3:2 ratio monitor? If so, what's your opinion? Are there any other options? Yes, I do use that monitor. No, there are no other options, and I think it's great. It's beautiful. It's high quality. The only complaints I have with it is that one, it's 60 hertz, and it would be so much nicer if it was 120. And two, the port's position for the Thunderbolt port is weird. It's on the side, which means you can't hide the cable, which annoys me personally. But other than that, it's great. Oh, and the port selection on the back is really anemic. It's HDMI 2.0, which can't even output at the full refresh rate. It outputs at 50 hertz at native res, which is ridiculous, so don't use that. And then the alternatives, if mini DisplayPort, which sucks. They should have HDMI 2.1 on the back, DisplayPort full, and then USB-C Thunderbolt on the back. They should all be on the back, and that's not the case. So
it's funny, on the Surface Dial page, it says an integral part of the Surface family. Many of the innovative things Surface Dial can do with Surface Studio, Surface Pro, and Surface Book 2 can also be done with Surface Book, Surface Laptop, and Surface Pro 4.
Oh, nice.
Someone is not maintaining this page. No.
I don't know where my Surface Dial is. I would try it on my laptop.
No one does.
Yeah,
no one
right.
knows where their dial is.
Gone. Yeah, I have no idea where mine is.
Well, they're not discounting it, so they're not trying to get rid of them.
Actually, because of inflation, they're putting the price up.
Yeah. They're collector's items.
All right, a couple more questions. Final call for questions, and then it's time for us to head off. Any thoughts on why the Duo 2 is still not in stock anywhere? So Microsoft's official statement was that they were just having issues, right? They were having supply constraints because of the component shortage. And I'm guessing at this point, because of it, at the price that the Duo now sells, it's almost certainly losing money on every unit they sell. So my assumption is, it really doesn't make sense for them to make any more, because they can't make more and then put it back up to $1,400 because nobody will buy it at full price, and so there's no point in making. It's like a catch-22 situation. There's no point producing any more if they're gonna not sell, but there's also no point producing any more if they're going to sell them at a loss. So what do they do? So yeah, I'm not too sure. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place regarding that. And because all companies in all industries are pulling back on a lot of things to prepare themselves for a potential recession, And I'm almost certain them ordering more Duo 2s is one of those things where they were like, actually, let's not do that. Let's put that on pause because it's a lot of money we're losing for no real reason. If you want a Duo, you can buy one used from eBay. And that's it, really. The other thing is not many people buy year-old phones new at this point. It's a very rare thing to do. So that's the other reason why I think they're not making any more.
Hey, Zach.
Yes.
Our company just announced we can get 14 weeks of paid parental leave.
Yeah.
Let's go have... I'm going to go have a bunch of kids now.
So what were you suggesting? Is this the last podcast before the holidays?
The entire Windows Central team should all have kids suddenly.
No, this is not the last episode before the holidays. We'll be back next Friday and the Friday after that. There will be no podcast on the 23rd or the 30th. And we'll be back on January 6th. I have no idea what we're going to talk about for the next 2 episodes, but we'll have to fill it with something. What GPU will the Surface Laptop Studio 2 use? I don't know. It'll probably be a 40 series, right? Are they shipping yet? Laptop ones? Have they even been announced?
For the 40 series?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the other thing. I'm saying spring, but it might not be spring. If there's nothing for them to update, then they won't release one. It all depends on whether or not there's a new GPU and a new CPU to actually update to. I mean, there is one on the CPU side, of course, but is there one on the GPU side? Currently, doesn't sound like it. All right, with that, I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.